Plus,
she couldn't believe herself. She thought, maybe I'm dreaming. No, you're not dreaming. This is reality. This is real.
He's a proud papa as Mississauga's Bianca Andreescu defeats Venus Williams. And putting old Christmas trees to new use, restoring the banks of the Bronte Creek. Good evening, I'm Mike Wise. An Ontario judge who spent 11 months on a comprehensive review of police carding says it has little to no law enforcement value. As Farah Morali tells us, with the judge's assessment now on the table, it's up to the government to make the next move.
These days, Asante Houghton walks the streets of Toronto with a sense of confidence. That wasn't always the case.
I once had an officer tell me I left my car too quickly and I looked dangerous.
Houghton says he started getting carded by police when he was 13 years old in Regent Park.
It's a scary situation to be in because, you know, you kind of sort of never know where the interaction might be going. And so the thing that goes through your head is, you know, how can I not escalate the situation? How can I, you know, get out of this situation safe? And, you know, as someone who's never really been in trouble or anything like that, it was always just, it felt like a violation of my rights.
Stops must be based on more than a hunch or spidey sense.
Today, Justice Michael Tulloch spoke publicly for the first time about his damning report. It found that carding has little to no value as a law enforcement tool.
Random carding should end. Now, in my extensive analysis, I was unable to find an example of a situation where police's inability to randomly stop people to conduct street checks for general intelligence gathering, or as I have referred to it today, inability to randomly card people, would interfere with their ability to effectively fulfill their duties.
Tulloch differentiated between street checks and carding in his report, explaining there are instances where street checks are warranted, but not carding, which he says is random and arbitrary.
Justice Tulloch, I think, did a very thorough job.
That's something that was welcomed by the Toronto Police Association. The president hopes the government will listen to their recommendations that involve more money, resources, and better bias training.
When we look at this report, is it going to be another report that sits on the shelf and gathers dust? Or are the government's going to give us the resources that we need to effectively train people and effectively deploy people?
Houghton says he's read the recommendations and is optimistic, but says there's still a sense of frustration over why it took so long to get here.
It's good to have this sort of validation for what we've been saying, in the sense that, you know, the report states that carding has not had any significant positive impact on policing or crime prevention. But again, this is something that we've been saying for a long time.
Farah Morali, CBC News, Toronto.
An overnight shooting near Greenwood and Gerrard has left at least one person with serious injuries and several cars with bullet holes.
It's just like gunfire, bang, 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 bang.
The shooting took place at 2:30 this morning. Police say the victim may have taken himself to hospital. Bullets punctured cars and smashed windows. One bullet, as you see there, even went into a home, and casings scattered the street. Police say it's possible people in different vehicles were shooting at each other. The province's chief coroner announcing today a review into the deaths of 9 Ontario police officers. They all died by suicide within the last year. Now the coroner wants to know if there are underlying issues that need to be addressed. The chief coroner says he will convene an expert panel within the next few weeks for the review. The plan is to assess medical and police records of all 9 officers, looking for commonalities. Chief coroner hopes to have a report ready by the summer, but work has already begun. Records have been pulled and families were notified. An alleged sex trafficking ring has been busted by Toronto police. Detectives have arrested 3 people who they say forced a woman into the sex trade after meeting her on the dating app Tinder. As Adrian Chung tells us, police say social media is now playing a growing and major role in human trafficking cases.
21 charges in all. Joshua Hamblett, Shoshana Wilkins, and Keegan Profit are all accused of human trafficking, but police say that only begins to describe what the victim faced. Police allege the accused met the woman over the dating app Tinder last year, forced into sex work, with the trio allegedly taking all of her earnings. We spoke to an investigator with Toronto Police's Human Trafficking Unit. CBC News is not identifying him because of his work as an undercover officer.
It's the whole premise of modern-day slavery. In some circumstances, within 24 to 48 hours, the person will already be lured into the sex trade and actually working.
The officer says social media plays a key role, from how victims are targeted to how their services are sold online.
That's where the main and initial recruitment and procuring of a vulnerable person does happen.
Personal ads have now been removed from Craigslist, but other sites have taken the place of Craigslist, where personal ads are allowed. In fact, they advertise it right on the site, and 2 clicks in, you can find pages and pages of escort listings. But police say that it's difficult to figure out which of these ads are people doing sex work of their own free will and which ones are being trafficked. Front-of-line workers say it's often a long way out for victims once they've been held captive by pimps.
It could be because they say, if you leave, I will post your naked pictures on social media, or I'll tell your family, I'll tell your friends, I'll out you.
And the officer says human trafficking is one of the most widespread crimes in the city, hiding in plain sight.
I've been in high-risk units such as the drug squad, organized crime, and our gun and gang unit, and I have never been as busy as a police officer as I have been here in the last 3 years.
Police believe there may be more victims in this latest case and are asking anyone with information to reach out to the police's Human Trafficking Unit. Adrian Chung, CBC News, Toronto.
Nick Sirkovich is here with his first look at the forecast. I love the mild weather today. We didn't break any records, but at least we didn't get anywhere near that record cold.
No, in fact, we had 8 degrees today, Mike. That's well above the seasonal mark. The seasonal mark is about minus 1.6 for today. There's a look at the Toronto Almanac. As I mentioned, the average high about minus 1.6, the average low minus 9.7. So we're nicely tucked away at 8 degrees there. Clear skies tonight, though, and a little bit of morning cloud cover leading to some fog through the morning hours. Now, we're going to watch for that because this could mean some freezing fog tomorrow morning. I'll talk about that coming up. For now, here's your overnight forecast, minus 3 degrees tomorrow up to a high of 5 degrees with clearing sky cover. More details on that and a potentially messy system headed our way for Monday.
Okay, thanks, Nick.
You bet.
There was a big legal win this week for a group of citizens fighting to reclaim over 500 hectares of cemetery space. Now, this all concerns Mount Pleasant Cemetery. Bought as a public trust in the 1800s, it stayed that way for about a century. But in the late 1980s, it went private. Well, now a judge has ruled that the space is indeed a public entity and it must be treated as such. Kel DeYoon spoke with some women behind the case about what that means.
I am overwhelmed with joy that this amazing 1,222 acre urban forest public trust historical Toronto place is returned to the people of Toronto.
Margot Boyd fought hard to see this day.
It's my great-great-great-grandfather, and his portrait is sitting over the fireplace at Osgoode Hall.
It's a fight that's also personal. Boyd's great-great-great-grandfather was the Attorney General in 1826 when he helped to establish the cemetery as a public trust.
It was to be a secular cemetery that was available to everybody, and the citizens of Toronto were also supposed to be involved in the governing of the trust.
Since 1987, though, the Mount Pleasant group of cemeteries, which grew to include 10 cemeteries across the GTA, had stopped treating it as a charitable trust.
And then they stopped allowing the public elections, and then they declared that they were commercial, privately owned cemeteries.
This sign making that clear. But this week, Ontario Superior Court Justice Sean Dunphy sided with Boyd and her group, ruling that the cemeteries do belong to the public. Pamela Taylor, a Toronto lawyer, says this means public oversight should be restored.
So this is really key, that as a public trust, this is established for the public benefit. The public has a say in how it's managed, and ultimately we know that the philosophy underlying it will be for the public's ultimate benefit.
The judge ruled the current directors of the Mount Pleasant group of cemeteries were all not validly appointed, and none have the authority to appoint a replacement. He also ordered that residents be allowed to demand a public meeting where other candidates could be considered. In a statement, the Mount Pleasant group of cemeteries said, "These court proceedings pertain to several pieces of special act legislation, the most pertinent pieces to the case being between 150 to 170 years old. We are disappointed in the court's ruling and will appeal the decision." Boyd, meanwhile, says she is hopeful the ruling will be upheld.
Kelda Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
She's turned into a giant killer in the world of tennis. I'm Lorenda Redekop. Bianca Andreescu has beaten two of the world's top players.
I believe that anything is possible, and tonight I think I did the impossible, so I don't even know what to say.
And she has even bigger dreams. She's in New Zealand playing again tonight in the semifinals. Her parents have been watching it all from here. I'll have more on her amazing climb coming up.
Welcome back. This is the first night about 50 LCBO stores are adopting later hours, taking advantage of a rule change from last month allowing alcohol sales from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. 7 days a week. Now, the move does have the union representing workers concerned about safety.
A couple of bottles of vodka is not worth getting stabbed over. Indeed, a lot of stores are a lot more busier than they were now. If you're going to have extended hours, how are you going to ensure safety of customers and staff and prevent shoplifting?
Now, Toronto police estimate over $200,000 worth of goods have been stolen from LCBO locations in Toronto between August and December of this year. The union president says workers have a lot of ideas about how security can be improved. They want to sit down with either the premier or a cabinet minister to share their thoughts. Canada's newest tennis star has done it again. 18-year-old Bianca Andreescu has stunned the sports world, this time defeating tennis royalty Venus Williams early this morning in New Zealand. It's her second big win in just 2 days. Lorenda Redekop has more on the Mississauga teen serving upset after upset on the international stage.
Another magical night for Bianca Andreescu.
Another night, another huge win for Bianca Andreescu, coming from behind to beat Venus Williams.
I believe that anything is possible, and tonight I think I did the impossible, so I don't even know what to say.
So this would be her first trophy when she was 9 years old.
At her home just north of Toronto, the office is a shrine to her tennis victories. Her parents FaceTimed with her after last night's win.
She couldn't believe herself. She thought, maybe I'm dreaming. No, you're not dreaming. This is reality. This is real.
For her mom, the pressure is just too much.
My wife doesn't watch usually.
No.
She's so emotional, and no, she usually I watch it by myself, and I tell her the score.
Her coach is thrilled with his young star's success.
I'm a big believer in Bianca. I really believe in her potential, her tennis potential, her physical, and her mind. She's got a really powerful mind. So I know she's going to do great things in tennis. Maybe it's a little bit earlier than I thought, but that's totally fine.
At Tennis Canada, they've seen Andreescu's game improve and aren't as surprised as she is.
She has no weakness for me. That's very important, now to be ready on the technical side.
She beat the world number 3 yesterday, then Venus Williams early today. So what does the future hold?
In the short term, I think the goal of Bianca is to be a top 15 in the world, and I would say in the long term is to be top 10 in the near future.
Bianca herself has even bigger dreams, obvious in the poster she signed for her parents. First up, though, she has a semi-final match to play Saturday in New Zealand. Lorenda Redicop, CBC News, Vaughan, Ontario.
And we actually interviewed Bianca Andreescu a year and a half ago when she got a surprise wildcard berth in the Rogers Cup right here in Toronto. And it was clear then she was on the right path.
I've came here to watch every final I remember since 2010, I think. I remember I watched Belinda Bencic beat Serena, and at that moment I told myself I want to do what she's doing. Every year I come here like it's at home, so it's an amazing feeling, and with the crowd to be for me, I think it's really going to help me throughout my matches.
And we might be able to get the chance to see Andreescu this summer at the Rogers Cup. The top women players return to the Aviva Centre at York University this August. Tickets go on sale later this month.
What do trout and Christmas have in common? Coming up, I'll tell you how these trees may be saving their habitat.
The weather update is brought to you by Train Extreme Conditions Testing. It's hard to stop a train, really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
Nick Cernkovich is back with his look at the extended forecast. Nick, you were warning about a potential of freezing fog tomorrow morning.
Yeah, and really the issue here, Mike, is we've got light winds, we've got clear skies, and that's one of the recipes anyway for fog. And in addition to that, we've got temperatures below zero. That could mean freezing fog, so the potential for some icy roads tomorrow morning. Under clear skies tonight, we'll develop some fog through the morning hours. Should generally burn off, though, by the time we hit the late morning, early afternoon hours. But before that, the risk for some freezing fog and potentially some icy roads tomorrow morning. Then as we move through tomorrow evening, a little bit of cloud cover, but generally we keep the sunshine through the long-range forecast. There's the light winds I talked about heading into tomorrow morning. Tomorrow night, however, the wind gusts pick up once again about 30, 40 kilometers per hour. Watch for that through the next 24. Overnight forecast down to -2 degrees in southwestern Ontario. Same story. The risk for a little bit of freezing fog or maybe some freezing drizzle in there. Tomorrow, highs of 6, 7 degrees across the region. You move into the Golden Horseshoe and we're looking at temperatures that sit tonight around -2, -3 degrees. And again, the same story. Risk for some icy roads there. By tomorrow, though, it should generally burn off. Highs to about 5, 6 degrees with a mix of sun and cloud. We are watching a system, though, in the long-range forecast. It has yet to develop, but this is where it will develop here down around Colorado. As we track forward in time, we go to about Monday, and this system has potential to bring with it a little bit of snowfall, likely around the morning. I wouldn't focus too much on the actual time of this. We're still a bit far out for that, but likely seeing a couple centimeters of snow with this on Monday morning. And then we get into what's called the warm sector, and behind it, we've got some rain showers. So a bit of a messy mix, and with it some winds as well for Monday, and that of course kicks off the school week for a lot of kids. For now, though, what we're looking at again is about 5 degrees in the city of Toronto, mix of sun and cloud. Cloud cover clearing out, though, through the morning hours. Sunday, sunny skies, -3 degrees, -12, though, through the overnight on Sunday, and then that mix on Monday. Tuesday, we warm up once again, and we hover around the zero mark for the next few days after that. Mike.
All right, thanks a lot, Nick.
You're welcome.
This is supposed to be the ice wine season in Niagara, but as you could probably tell from Nick's forecast, this hasn't been the best season for growing or harvesting.
We have days at 7 degrees like today. We have days at just 0. We have a lot of rain also. So yeah, it's not been the best conditions.
Due to those fluctuating temperatures Nick was talking about, grapes aren't growing like they should. Now, to harvest a great ice wine, temperatures need to be at least -8 or -10 for a couple of days. Growers may not catch a break anytime soon. Above seasonal temperatures are in the forecast for the next 2 weeks. And if you haven't already, this may be the weekend many of us will be taking down the Christmas tree and putting away the decorations. In Halton Region, they are finding a novel way to put those old trees to good use. Conservation Halton is beginning to stockpile discarded trees, and when the weather gets warmer, they'll be used to make Bronte Creek a little healthier. Taylor Simmons shows us how.
Although it doesn't look like much from here, there's actually quite a lot happening under the ice.
Those wooden stakes across the water hold down dozens of Christmas trees. They mark the beginning of a new bank along Bronte Creek.
We would push them all down nicely into the bottom of the creek, and we would anchor in kind of a fabric of a whole bunch of Christmas trees here, and then within a couple of years you won't even see these trees. It'll just be earthen bank just like we're standing on right here.
It's a merry solution to fix the local habitat. From the 70s to 90s, a trailer park operated in Courtcliff Park, and the owners dug out parts of the creek.
We believe it may have been widened by as much as 5 times its historical width. We have a greater surface area for the sun to warm up the water, and when this water is very, very warm, it's not habitable to sensitive species.
Species like brook trout, whose populations dropped. They can only handle water temperatures up to 18 degrees Celsius.
Brook trout are kind of known as canaries in the coal mine, so if brook trout are happy and the water is cold enough for them, then we're actually helping to protect a whole range of species as well.
Enter Christmas trees. Bundled together, the tight branches and needles catch sediment passing through the water and rebuild the creek banks, including this huge 20 by 40 foot addition made up of almost 200 Christmas trees.
Here we've started to see earth on top of the Christmas trees and plants growing.
The trees work so well, they're not the only ones using them. Credit Valley Conservation runs a similar program with the Credit River, rebuilding and in turn, cooling the water. By working with landfills, tree nurseries, and corporate donors, Conservation Halton hopes to gather 400 trees in the coming weeks for use this year.
If you want to do your part, they're always looking for volunteers in the spring and summer to come and put the Christmas trees into the creeks and rivers around the region. Taylor Simmons, CBC News, Carlisle.
Welcome back. The Motorcycle Super Show kicked off tonight at the International Center in Mississauga. When our camera was there, we saw a wide range of people showing up, from a family looking to get on the road for the first time to some seasoned veterans.
I think it'd be fun to ride together as a family.
I just want to kind of expose them, or just kind of give them options that like I didn't really have when I was growing up, type of thing. So it'd be cool to kind of get them in young to check it out and see if they like it or not.
It's empowering. It's nice to see more women out riding. I think it's just a show of power and strength.
This is the largest show of its kind in North America, featuring hundreds of exhibits and over 1,000 motorcycles on display. It's on all weekend at the International Center if you want to check it out. Or would you like to own a piece of Toronto sports history? The home run ball that sent the city into a frenzy after Jose Bautista's bat flip is up for auction. Oh, remember the flip. What about the ball? Well, it was posted to an American memorabilia site today from the man who caught the ball in the left field stands during Game 5 of that 2015 ALDS against the Texas Rangers. The opening bid was $3,500. So far, there have been 2 bids for it. It's now up to $4,200, and don't worry, still plenty of time if you're curious. Bidding ends on February 1st at 10 p.m. Eastern. I wonder whatever happened to the bat that Bautista flipped, though, as well. That's our newscast for tonight and for this first week of 2019. Have a great weekend. Maribel Taruk has your next newscast tomorrow night at 6. I'll see you back here again Monday at 11. Good night.